Bad news about Uhuru Kenyatta has shaken Kenya. Welcome to Kenya Lens Media, where we bring you news updates as they break. And kindly, if it is the first time you're meeting this channel, kindly consider subscribing. Now, Kenya's Orange Democratic Movement is facing its most serious internal crisis in years after National Assembly Minority Leader Junet Mohammed publicly accused the former President Uhuru Kenyatta of destabilizing and weakening the party. Speaking in Lamu County on Thursday, Junet Mohammed claimed that Kenyatta, rather than President William Ruto or the broad-based government, is responsible for the divisions now threatening to fracture the opposition movement. Junet, who is also the Suna East Member of Parliament, urged the former head of state to stay out of ODM affairs and instead focus on reviving his own Jubilee party. His remarks marked a sharp escalation in rhetoric within opposition politics and underscored the growing power struggle following the death of ODM's longtime leader Raila Odinga in October last year. The accusations come at a sensitive moment for the party, which is struggling to redefine its leadership, ideological direction, and the strategy ahead of the 2027 general election. Addressing supporters in Lamu, Junet rejected claims that President Ruto was behind the infighting within ODM. He was responding to earlier remarks by Siaya Governor James Orengo, who had suggested that the ruling administration was exploiting divisions inside the opposition. According to Junet, the real source of ODM's troubles lies elsewhere. He claims that Uhuru Kenyatta has continued to exert influence over the party despite no longer being a member or leader of it. Junet alleged that Kenyatta is actively sponsoring dissent voices within ODM, encouraging internal rebellion at a time when the party needs unity. Junet's comments were unusually blunt for a sitting parliamentary leader. He accused the former president of refusing to step away from active politics and attempting to advance his own political agenda through ODM rather than through Jubilee. At the center of Junet's criticism, Kenyatta's continued leadership of the Jubilee Party and his perceived backing of the former Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i as a future presidential candidate. Junet argued that Kenyatta should channel his energy into rebuilding Jubilee and supporting his chosen political project there rather than interfering in ODM's internal affairs. Political analysts say that the remarks reflect growing frustration within sections of ODM that believe the party has become a battleground for external interests. Since Raila Odinga's death, ODM has lacked a unifying national figure, making it more vulnerable to influence from allies and rivals alike. Junet's statement suggests that ODM leaders now view Kenyatta less as a partner and more as a destabilizing force with competing ambitions. The crisis within ODM did not emerge overnight. The party has been under strain since the death of Raila Odinga, who for decades served as its ideological anchor, chief mobilizer, and final arbiter in disputes, and his absence created a leadership vacuum that has yet to be filled. Without Raila's authority long suppressed, disagreements over strategy and alliances have become to the surface. Senior leaders are divided over whether ODM should support President Ruto's re-election as part of the broad-based political arrangement or chart an independent path and field its own presidential candidate in 2027. These disagreements have hardened into rival factions, each accusing the other of betraying the party's core values. The internal tensions reached a breaking point in February 2026 with the controversial removal of the ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna. The party's National Executive Committee voted to oust Sifuna, citing discipline and leadership concerns. However, the High Court quickly intervened, issuing orders blocking the removal until a legal challenge is heard and determined. The court decision effectively reinstated Sifuna, at least temporarily, and exposed deep procedural and constitutional questions within the party. For many observers, the Sifuna saga became a symbol of ODM's broader governance crisis, where internal rules appear contested and leadership decisions are increasingly settled through the courts rather than the party organs. At the heart of the current conflict are two competing visions for ODM's future role in Kenyan politics. One faction supports continued cooperation with President Ruto and argues that engagement within party structures offers the best opportunity to influence policy and protect opposition interests. This group views pragmatic alliances as necessary in changing political environment. The opposing faction insists that ODM must remain a clear opposition force. It argues that supporting Ruto's re-election would betray the party's history and alienate its base. This group calls ODM to rebuild its identity and present its own presidential candidate in 2027. Junet's remarks indicate where he stands in this debate. By blaming Kenyatta rather than Ruto, he appears to defend the party's internal cohesion while downplaying tensions over cooperation with the current administration. Junet's comments also come against the backdrop of his own recent political loss. In early February, he was removed as the Secretary General of the Azimio Coalition following a meeting chaired by Uhuru Kenyatta. Suba South MP Carol Omondi was appointed to replace him. The timing of these changes has fueled speculations that Junet's outspoken criticism of Kenyatta is partly shaped by personal and factional grievances. Supporters argue that his remarks reflect genuine concern for ODM's survival, while critics suggest that they reveal deepening rivalries within the opposition. The escalating dispute raises serious questions about the future of opposition unity in Kenya. ODM has historically served as the backbone of the opposition politics, providing structure, leadership, and national platform for dissenting voices. If the current wrangles persist, the party risks fragmentation at the time when cohesion is critical. Prolonged infighting could weaken ODM's ability to mobilize voters, negotiate alliances, and present a credible alternative to the leading and the ruling coalition. Political observers warn that unresolved leadership disputes may also discourage younger leaders and supporters, further eroding the party's influence. The unfolding conflict within ODM is more than a party dispute. It reflects broader challenges facing Kenya's multi-party democracy, where political movements often revolve around personalities rather than strong institutions. Junet Mohammed's direct attack on the former president highlights the intensity of competition for influence in the post-Raila era. It also exposes the difficulty of managing succession, dissent, and ideological clarity within long-established parties. As Kenya moves towards the 2027 elections, the ability of opposition parties to resolve internal conflicts peacefully and transparently will be crucial. Whether ODM can overcome its current crisis, define its political direction, and rebuild trust among its members will shape not only its own future, but the health of democratic competition in the country. For now, Junet's remarks signal that the struggle for ODM's soul is far from over, and that the battle lines are now becoming increasingly clear. That is all for today from Kenya Lens Media, your channel that brings you news updates as they break. Kindly consider subscribing as a way of motivating us and helping this platform to grow as we prepare to bring you news updates from Kenya and beyond.